Hi guys, so in this video I want to talk about spirituality. So in a previous video that I did, I kind of mentioned this briefly. It was the intro to my channel. I said things about politics, which I am interested in talking about as well, and I'll probably be making content about. And I'm doing podcasts, so that'll be put on here or put in. I have a uh, I have a playlist for the podcasts that I'm on from other people that you can also watch. I'm maybe make my own eventually, but this video is about spirituality. So in section one, I want to talk about my background and where I came from. I was raised Christian, and I was baptized, and I went to a lot of different churches with my, family. They took me to. I was, all over the county and all different kinds of churches throughout my elementary and middle school years. And then I want to talk about my transformation. So about a year ago, a little bit over a year ago, I rediscovered spirituality. I rediscovered my oneness with, all that is, with Source. Um, and I learned a lot from religious philosophers and religious thinkers and religious figures. Um, and it's section three. I want to discuss where I am now. So what I learned, and then in the final section, I want to summarize that and maybe give some experiences or give some uh, ideas that may help others. I know that when I was younger, a lot of people my age and even older than me started losing faith in God. There was the New Atheist movement led by those like Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, people like that. And that tied in with the failures of organized religion, like the scandals of the Catholic Church, the corruption that you see in even Protestant churches in the United States, and the ideas espoused by those churches, which seemed utterly, you know, medieval in a way. They were very repressive, and that pushed a lot of young people away from the church. And I want to talk about my experience with that. That's why, I was pushed away, and then rediscovering God. So, in part one, here, I want to talk about my background. I was raised Christian, like I said. My parents went to a lot of different churches. I believe the first church that I ever went to was a Methodist church. I haven't really asked to see what the first church was, but from what I can remember, it was like United Methodist Church in my local town. Um, I don't really remember much of that. I know that we went around to a couple different Baptist churches, and I really didn't like some of what was preached there. And going into, I actually went to a church that I did like the political beliefs of, and the religious beliefs that were espoused, to an extent. We ended up going to a First Christian church in town. Um, they're more liberal. They're actually the only church, at least from what I can remember right now in my county, that does gay marriages, which I think is something that, if I were to be a Christian, and I am a Christian now, but if I were to be a Christian at the time, that would be something that I would think the church should do. But I was raised to, love your fellow neighbor, be respectful, be kind, and I was always taught that there's not differences between me and somebody of a different race, of a different religion, or a different gender. And a lot of the beliefs that, you can read in religious texts, which I did read, the promotion of slavery, the defense of slavery, the selling your children into slavery, about, you know, sleeping with somebody else because your wife can't have kids, um, different types of things that really turned me off from those texts. And I looked at it in a very logical sense. So I looked at it as well, we can't prove God, and then therefore there is no God. Like if you can't prove it, then it's on you to convince me, right? So like if basically one of the main arguments that I really liked was that if you make a claim, you have to defend that claim, right? So if you make a claim, it's I shouldn't just believe what you say, right? And that makes sense. So like if I said the sky's purple and you looked up at the sky and saw it wasn't purple, and you asked me, why do you think it's purple? Can you defend that argument? Maybe I could be convinced, but from what I see, it looks blue. It doesn't look purple. And, that argument made a lot of sense to me. I may not be summarizing it in the best way, but basically that's the extent of it. And there were other arguments, but, like I mentioned before with the text and what's in it, but I was turned off by that. And I lived many years of my life being an atheist, though I would say that I didn't know, like, oh, there's no way of knowing, but I'd call myself an atheist. But in reality, what I espoused was agnostic, and I would recognize that at times when talking to people. But I lived many years like that, and about a year or so ago, I kind of refound God. Um, so a little bit more of the backstory, though. I made a lot of mistakes in that times, but I guess afterwards, after that fact, I think I realized that a lot of the good fortune I had was maybe due to something higher than me. So I went to an accelerated school. My last 2 years of high school, I was living on a college campus, taking college courses. Um, and I almost didn't get into that. I almost wasn't in that, and I remember being devastated. I was crying in the car when I found out I didn't get in, and then somehow I was accepted, in which you can say, that's just, a coincidence. I guess not a coincidence, not the right word, but that's just, I ended up getting in and that was good. But at the time I didn't see it that way. I think afterwards I kind of felt like I had some kind of guidance over me that helped me get in there. Um, but there were a lot of other things that happened in my life that just seemed sudden, that I would be thinking everything's gonna be horrible. I'm not gonna succeed. I failed, and then all of a sudden, it's like it's reversed. And uh, that's something that looking back on, I feel really, really, really strongly that that's definitely some kind of intervention. So here in part two, I want to discuss kind of my transformation. So about a little bit over a year ago, I kind of rediscovered spirituality. It all kind of started with how I moved out of the apartment I lived in for about 2 years. That was not the plan. I was planning on moving to a three-bedroom with the same people I had been living with in the two-bedroom apartment. And there was a little bit of a falling out, personalities. I think the relationship has been fixed somewhat. I've spoken to them since that, one more than the other, and I don't feel like I have any hard feelings anymore. But personalities sometimes don't always fit together, and I felt like it was best for me and my mental health to move out of there. So I moved back home, and um, mind you, I'm still in school, and I had previously dealt with a lot of issues from um, a previous relationship in which I almost actually dropped out of school. But I ended up, getting everything together and graduating. So I'm still, working on my master's degree, and I'm actually taking a little bit of a break right now. But at the time, I was, still muscling through it. I was driving. back and forth from my home to work and to school about an hour, a little bit over an hour. Um, and that was really difficult for me. That was really difficult, and it was a hard time because I had moved now also about an hour or so away from my girlfriend, and I didn't really know many people. I don't, I haven't always had a lot of friends. I've had different people in my life that I've been friendly with, but mostly in social or school settings, not really, outside of that. I've had a couple of friends, but outside of that, but sometimes they're not the best influences. Um, and so I was kind of alone here. And I went through a very, stressful time. And I don't know, it all started really with, I was interested in, you know, the meaning of life, what meaning I could make out of it. And I ended up stumbling upon some religious ideas from Gnostics. Not agnostics, but Gnostics. Um, there's Gnostics in different religions, so there are like mystical Gnostic, like Muslims, I believe, and there were also like kind of Gnostic Jews. But I kind of stumbled upon the Gnostic Christianity that existed in the early um, early history of Christianity. These were Christians that used things like mushrooms and psychedelics to talk to God, communicate with angels, things like that. And they had a lot of different views than mainstream Christianity on kind of the material world, so that the material world is kind of hell. The material world is not perfect. A lot of Christians, will say that, you know, God made the earth and it's perfect. And then that's also maybe a reason why I left the church, is that the justification of evil, which now I think is a necessary part of the world. Um, and that doesn't mean I don't think we can minimize it. I think we should definitely minimize suffering and pain. But I think suffering and pain are necessary for the soul to learn, and I think you probably learn that, um, you know, by choice. I think you at a higher level chose that before your life, which can seem insensitive sometimes. I know, but I've also been through a lot. I mean, I don't look like it. I don't feel like, but I've been through a lot of, pain and sleepless nights and crying in the fetal position. And um, I've been obese or borderline obese a couple of times. Um, I've lost a lot of weight. I've improved like, there have been a lot of things that I've gone through, a lot of self-hating, a lot of shame. I've let go of a lot of that. But that transformation happened about a year or so ago, and I was, interested in Gnostic tradition. I was reading about it. I was looking at a lot of different faiths and how they were interconnected. Well, I really like Rainn Wilson. His podcast, which I've been starting watching more recently, but I kind of knew about this faith though before. He's a member of the Baha'i faith. He calls himself a Christian, but he's a Baha'i, and they believe a lot that, the world's religions, what's similar about them is probably true. So, love thy neighbor, being kind to one another, the golden rule, all these things, which you can find in, Hinduism and Buddhism and Confucianism and Judaism and Islam and Christianity and animism and a lot of different of these world religions. And I think kind of taking all this in, it was very stressful. It was, I didn't know what to believe. Living my life, in the belief that there was no God for so many years, when I started rediscovering this and believing this and praying, and I felt stupid. I felt like, I'm just doing this because I'm going through a hard time. Um, and I'd always said that, some people need religion because they're not strong enough to handle the world as it is and they need something else. And I think that's untrue. I think that religion is helpful for those types of situations, but that's not it's not just because it's helpful for people in hard situations and, some people maybe don't believe that doesn't mean that it's not true. You know what I mean? So I I had to learn a lot, um, and that transformation has really made me feel better. Like I feel better. The breathing, the meditating, the praying and asking God, source, whatever you want to call it, for guidance. Um, trying to manifest those things in your life by actively praying for it, writing it down, figuring out plans to make that happen. I think it's really helpful, and it's something that took a lot of courage, I think, to get out of the mindset I was in. All right, and this is part three. So I want to talk about where I am now. So I want to talk about um, kind of how I'm still living in my hometown. I have gone through some difficulty, some people from before my life popping up in a negative way. Um, Partially my fault, but also, showing their true selves. Um, and it's really put me in a difficult spot. I'm going through a lot, but compared to dealing with this issue I'm dealing with now, I dealt with it before. Dealing with it this time has been a lot better. It has made me extremely anxious. I actually have decided to take a leave of absence from school for this semester. Um, I'm looking at other schools as well out of state, possibly to go to, um, kind of restart, you know, start my life anew somewhere else. We'll see if it's going to be somewhere else, or I'll stay where I am now. But the university is fine with me taking a leave of absence until next semester at least. Um, and I'm using this time to make YouTube videos, make TikToks, go on podcasts. I'm trying to build my online presence. Um, I think my voice can be somewhat helpful. And again, this is my technically it's my third video, but this is like one of the first few videos I've done, and I I want to get it's out there. I'm not perfect at it yet, but everything's a work in progress. Um, but I feel like I I've tried this before in my life. I've tried being a streamer. I started to set up accounts, and it just feels like I was never able to do it. I was never able to start streaming games and talking about politics. I was never able to, do things like that when I got started. And now I'm finding the courage. I'm finding not only the courage, but the motivation and the drive. Um, and this is pretty new for me. I wasn't always like this. I lived in fear of being seen. And one thing I think too is spirituality has made me realize that I don't need to be afraid to be seen. I put value out into the world. My story means something. I shouldn't take what other people say about me and internalize that and believe that because I know who I am. I know that I'm good. I know that I'm loving. I know that I'm kind. And all of that, I didn't need religion for. Some people need religion for that. Some people need these rules to live their life well. And sometimes they don't even fully live up to it. I have always tried, even when I was an atheist, I knew right from wrong. And that I think also has to do with my upbringing, being raised to love your neighbor, being raised, in Christianity, having some of those values put in you. But I feel like I've had that deep in me before that. Um, and that's coming up now where I live my life, open doors for people. I try to always smile and be kind. I try to leave a pretty good tip, more than 20% at every time I eat, even if it's not the best service that some people would be mad about, which I don't want to get into tipping culture. I don't think that should be a thing anyways. I think people should be paid a living wage. But aside from that, I try to live my life well, and I know who I am. And spirituality has given me that that knowledge that I can speak. I should be proud to speak. I should be proud to tell you who I am. And it's helped me, with with withdrawing from classes and taking a leave of absence for this semester. It's something that I would have been extremely afraid to do. I would have been anxious. I would have felt like my life is falling apart. And it's like now with these with the knowledge that, I feel like I have people watching over me. I feel like I'm being guided. I feel like that I have a mission in this life. And it's given me a feeling of purpose. It's given me a feeling of like a weight being lifted off of my shoulders. I feel like I can do anything, and I feel like this is just the start. And I'm extremely interested to share more with you all. Um, I would love to create content for some people, and I guess this is going into the final part. So, uh, but I'm extremely interested to talk to people, to see how I can help them, to make content that helps others realize their worth, realize that they're not alone, realize that they too have a voice and they can speak. And in summary, I want to talk about why this may be helpful. So, I feel like there's a lot of people who may have gone through difficulties in relationships, in like romantic relationships or in friendships, in their family life, which I've been through a lot in all of those. And I think that, hearing my perspective, hearing my experience, which I'll go into further in other content, other videos, it might be helpful. It could help people see, you know, how to recognize their own mistakes, how to grow from those mistakes, which I have grown a lot from recognizing mistakes that I have made. Um, but not wholly blaming yourself, knowing that, there's always two people who contribute to a situation for the most part. There are sometimes it's not, but in many situations it's a combination. And I th- I think it could be helpful. Um, and I wanted to talk about this with you all. Um, talk about my experiences further in the future, but I guess more summary is just that this has been an incredibly challenging experience for me, the past couple years. And I think finding spirituality has really helped me a lot. It's lit a spark in me where I feel able to finally speak to you, speak to the world, and put out my voice and my image. Um, I'm gonna be making more videos like this. I know I'm not really at a place to say this, but if you want to like and subscribe and comment, that would be great. Um, I know the video quality isn't the best and things like that, but I'm hoping it'll be better soon. Um, I, but um, anyways, I thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your night, um, wherever you are. Thank you.